So Isabel, thank you very much for coming in. The idea behind this series is to put a spotlight on really talented and perhaps underrepresented people who are in the woodworking sector. And you're a really interesting case, because whilst you perhaps aren't directly engaged with woodworking in one sense, in another sense you're highly engaged with woodworking. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you've got to where you are today in terms of with the sorts of products that you produce?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me here. I am very, very excited. I'm very honored. It was actually really by accident. I started sewing about 10 years ago. Then I got into leather work. I was making handbags, and just by accident, a friend of mine wanted me to make a chisel roll. So it kind of escalated from there. Then his friend wanted one, his other friend wanted another one, then he wanted a sew cover made. And I started posting it online, and all of a sudden I started to get traction. I started to get more sales online. I was doing this as a hobby at the time. But more and more people were wanting this type of product. So I was actually kind of impressed by how much interest there was around. My husband at the time was getting into woodworking himself, and I remember we used to watch YouTube videos at night time after putting the kids to bed, and I've always really enjoyed the craftsmanship that comes with woodwork. But funnily enough, at the time, even though my husband was getting into it, I don't know, I was like, no, well, I'm into sewing, he's into woodwork, like that's great. Fast forward 7 years, and I'm just now thinking, well, maybe I should get into woodwork myself as well. Why not? Which I might do in future. But for the moment, I'm just really enjoying watching people's journeys, the things that they make. It's just so inspiring, and the community is just so fabulous. Everyone's so supportive. And I don't know, I just really enjoy the craft. And now I just love helping people find the right leather storage for their tools, because I've now got a love for my own tools as well. So I know what it means to care for your tools and to have them safe in a place that actually looks quite beautiful.
Absolutely. So what was the turning point for you from hobby to business? How did that unfold?
We were in Brisbane at the time, so we lived in Brisbane for 10 years. I was working in the corporate sector. Leather work and sewing at the time was a bit of like my, it was almost like my therapy. I put the kids to bed after a long day at work, and then I start making. It would just be my way of unwinding from a busy day. But it was starting to get really busy. So there was a lot more demand, particularly for my woodworking range. More demand, but it just wasn't quite enough to justify quitting my job. At the time, we were also wondering whether we should move up the coast. This has been a dream of ours for a long, long time. And because my husband was working from home at the time, we just decided, well, why wait until we're retired to do the things that we want to do? Why don't we just try and do this now? Obviously, my business was gaining traction. So I just thought, if I just can spend a couple of years building up on it, then who knows what will happen. But if I don't try it now, I'm just never going to know. Yeah. So we just decided to just be brave and go into the unknown. So all of a sudden, it's been 18 months now since I've been doing this full time, and I just see that it can actually work, and I can make a living out of it. So I'm just so excited for the future. Yeah.
So the business name that you trade under,
En Mina.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Well, I'm from Spain. If you can tell by my accent, even though I've now been living overseas for half my life. But there's a particular place. It's actually a particular square in my hometown in Cádiz. It's in the south of Spain, and it's called Mina. So that is my most special place. Yeah. Even though I love many places in the world, but that is my place that when I go home, that's the place where I love to hang out. Ever since I was a child, we used to go there with my rollerblades and, riding my bike. And now as an adult, we go back there and we stay there and we go and have tapas there. And it's such a special place in my life. So when I decided on a name for my brand, even though it's totally unrelated, I just thought it's the one thing that I can just never leave behind, even though I've been away for 20 years. And I'm an Aussie now as well, and I love it here. But I don't know, I just thought it's got to be a name that resonates with who I am. And ultimately, that's where I grew up. So it just, I just added the leather at the end because there's some confusion on what it might mean. But yeah, that's what it is.
That's great.
Yeah.
So with the transition from hobby to business, has that had an impact on like your creative approach, or has it changed it in any way?
It's funny you say that because I have to make a conscious effort to set time aside to still make things for myself. Because obviously for a very long time, that was my way of making things that would make me happy, even though they make me really happy too. But I do have to make sure that I do still nurture the love for the craft that I always have had. And I don't want to get it to the point where it becomes a chore. So I do try and set aside some time to still make things for myself so that I don't get too. But in saying that, there is so much more to offer to the woodworking community. There is so many more, like there's so many tools, and you need to take care of them and store them properly. So I literally spend my days just dreaming about all the things I'm gonna make. Like at the moment, I'm making a tool roll for palm chisels. Like there's so many different tools and so many things that I can make that, to be honest, I'm always like, my creative juices are always flowing.
And do you find that there's a tension between the need to be precise versus letting your creative spirit flow?
Precision is something that it must be there. Like so many times I've rushed through work because I'm in a rush or I've got a deadline to meet, and it never works.
Yeah.
Especially with leather, once you make a hole, you make a hole. There's no way around it, much like wood. So if I don't focus on precision, it's just not going to have the outcome that I want. So precision is almost like a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
With the creative energy that I put into my products, I probably leave that more to my prototyping or when I'm working on personal projects. But precision is just the number one for me, because if it's not perfect, it just doesn't leave the shop or the workshop. Yeah.
And is there a particular part of your craft that you enjoy most?
I love everything about the craft, but what I probably enjoy doing the most is actually going out there and talking to my customers.
Yeah.
So when I do markets, when I do expos like the Millennium Expo that is coming up again soon, I just love being out there and getting real-time feedback. I can just see it in their faces. If it's a product that I'm not so sure about, I can just see it straight away. But also, some people will come and they'll be like, oh, I've been smelling the leather from like 10 meters away and I've been following to see where it comes from. And it just makes me so happy. It's also interesting how most people love leather, but they actually don't know much about it. And sometimes I take it for granted how much I now know. But a lot of people have a lot of questions like, where does the leather come from? Where do you actually buy the leather? What types of leather there are? In Australia, we have so many different animal skin products that are fabulous. We don't even need to go overseas. It's all here. So there's a lot of questions, and I just love sharing my knowledge and what I know, and I generally get quite a lot of good feedback on that as well. So I love that.
And do you find it's a different conversation between male and female customers, or do they basically resonate on the same issues? Or?
No, I don't. But to be honest, perhaps because of my products, I get most of the men more excited, usually. Particularly if I'm in a market, usually, this is very stereotypical, but there's usually the wife and the husband, and they're walking along, and the wife is excited about many, many stores. But there's not many stalls like mine, so then all of a sudden you get the husbands to come, and they're really attracted to what I do, and you really see it in their faces. They look at this roll and they go like, this is amazing, and I love it. And I suppose it's also because there's not as many female woodworkers around yet.
And I guess along the way, like particularly with the the business side of things. Like, I mean, so what are some of the big things that you've learned that perhaps you didn't envisage maybe 7 years ago that you'd be tackling?
I think the biggest lesson, and I'm still learning now, is not to undervalue my craft. Like, that is probably the biggest, and I still struggle with that, to be honest. And it's also because I love what I do so much. And some things take me not very long time anymore, because obviously my hands are very skilled now, I'm very fast at what I do. And I forget that there's a lot of love and effort and many years of learning the craft and studying and watching and following and I do tend to undervalue what I do, but that's something that I'm still working on. and you know, I'm sure with a lot of makers and creatives that also happens.
Are there any like standout moments for you in terms of feeling, you know, rewards and you know, the things that really are going to stay with you?
Definitely so far my biggest compliment to my work and the biggest testament to the quality of what I make is having my products on your shelves. I mean, not in my wildest dreams would I have thought that my products would just be sold Australia-wide. That is just crazy. Like, I mean, yes, I've got my website and yes, I go to the markets and all of that kind of jazz, but to actually be approached and be valued for what I actually do and what I make and be supported by, you know, like a well-known brand, I just could have never imagined that would ever happen. So that in itself is incredible. And like I've had people contact me saying, I found your work and I love it and can you do this other thing and can you make me something custom or can you... So it's just, the opportunities are, and I'm here talking to you, so it's just mind-blowing and I'm just so excited and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So that is just giving me the confidence to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm in the right path. There's still so much more work to do. There's so much that I need to learn, but I just feel so confident now that I'm on the right path and I'm just going to keep going for it.
Well, your passion and enthusiasm is so inspiring. It really is.
Oh, thank you. That's the yoke I like, actually. Gosh, my sewing machine. I love my sewing machine. My first handbag I ever made, which is right there.
Yep.
And I made my hand with sweat and tears, and I just love it.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
The first one, the creative one, when my mind goes wild and I just start drafting patterns left, right, and center until I come up with a good one. Yes, two things: my own apron, which I love wearing every day, and also a seam ripper, which I bought from another woodmaker. Yeah, definitely podcasts more than music.
Yep. Isabel, I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
A delight to talk to you.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have been here. Thank you so much for your time, Dom. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool.